This is an instructional video for the Forest Manufacturing Model 106 curved sidewall and pipe covering saw. This machine runs three different ways, or three different setups. It can be used to cut pipe covering insulation, basically 180-degree shapes. It can also be used to cut vessel or tank covering insulation, which we call curved segments, which are basically insulation segments that cover less than 180 degrees of the tank or vessel or large pipe. So the machine has three different configurations. The first, which I'm introducing in this video, is for pipe covering. I will cover the other two short radius and long radius curved sidewall setups in following videos. When you get this machine, it comes disassembled because really it's too big to ship as is. We have what we call the upper carriage and rails and the lower carriage and rails. These would be unbolted. The lower carriage, a pair of 3-inch round tubes supported on brackets at both ends here, and then this bracket on this end bolts to the lower cabinet housing of the saw. So you've got a couple bolt heads here. So when you get this, you get these 3-inch square tube or 3-inch round tubes. You'll need to assemble them onto these stands. The stands have toes turned in. One end has the bolt holes to match this. These tubes are bolted to slots here. The ideal situation is to have the tubes and their bolts here, which you can't see, I'm sorry, in the center of the slot. But if your floor of your shop or wherever you're setting up is uneven, the slots give you adjustment range. So this is what we call the lower carriage. Lower carriage rolls on these 3-inch round tubes. It's got a bearing, what we call a turntable here on it. The turntable has the bearings facing the saw. So you'll want to load this lower carriage onto the 3-inch rail tubes when you're assembling all this lower rail configuration. Upper rails. This is easier to mount. It's got a 3-inch round tube here, and higher up, I'm not sure that shows up in the video, there's a 2-inch square tube. The 3-inch round tube goes down. This also has a carriage mounted on it. The upper carriage is only used for pipe covering. When you are doing pipe covering, now they got it on there too tight. Well, it's on there screwed down, and I didn't bring the tools with me to assemble it. This piece right here is we call it the lower Mandrel adapter. If you have the clamping tools with you, you can unbolt the crossbars and lift this off, leaving you with just this turntable. But for pipe covering, you want this adapter in place. It's got a pinhole. So there's a pin in this adapter that matches up to a hole drilled in this turntable plate. That's to set the distance, or the location of the lower Mandrel adapter on the turntable. So the real fun happens, we have down here and up here what we call our gauge blocks. For all of your common piping sizes, there are slots marked here on these gauges. For example, if I want to cut 14-inch pipe, run this over and set the, where is it? 12, 13, 14. Fix these knife handles in the gauge block. And with everything set up correctly, we now have the correct distance from this bearing to the outer of the two blades to cut 14-inch diameter pipe. Same up here. Yep. We have the same gauge here, up here. And we set it also has engraved slots for all your common pipe sizes. Then for actually supporting the installation, we have Mandrels. The machine is provided with a set of mandrels. It has, I believe, 5 different vacuum mandrels and 2 type of grabbing mandrels. One is a spring clamp and one is a lever clamp. This is not set up, but this is the spring clamp mandrel. But it basically just gives you a way to use a spring to grab your insulation. The most common way to use this is with a vacuum mandrel. So the vacuum mandrel has a line of holes along its length. This bottom bearing here is where this mounts. So mounting these, the machine comes with these 2 eccentric collars. With kind of a hollow cut out of it. Have the hollow facing away from the main part. Slide them on the ends. These are eccentric collars and they allow you to mount and have the mandrel stay on. So what you'll typically do is not drop the collar. Goes in the upper mandrel. Slide in further you need to. Just rotate over. Drop it in here. Then this eccentric collar. Give it a twist. There's a hole here, so you can give it a little tap with a screwdriver and hammer to tighten it up, and then set the set screw. That will lock this in position. So now you've got this parallel to the 2 blades. Pipe covering you can cut either with a single blade or 2 blades. Obviously the biggest feature of the Model 106 is it has 2 blades. There's a hand crank down here, which you can turn and adjust the spacing between the blades. So if you need a 2 1/4 inch thick piece of insulation, you set the distance between the blades 2 1/4 inches with that pipe. And so the inner, well, I call this the outer saw compared to the inner saw. From the point of view of the insulation, this is cutting the inner diameter of the insulation, this is cutting the outer diameter of the insulation. But as the saw is built, the saw to the inside, we call it the inner. But you'll, for example, right now, I'm set at 14-inch pipe. 14-inch pipe has a true size of 14 inches. So from the center of this pipe here to this outside edge of the blade is 7 inches, the radius. And you vary that by just changing the setting here. If at any time you need to cut something that's not a standard pipe size, you don't have to use these. You can unlock them. You can manually move the mandrel wherever you need it. And we have friction locks. So if you need some oddball size for whatever reason, set it where you need it, measure tape to here, you can set it with the friction locks. Guides. Lower guides you won't have to mess with. Upper guides are adjustable. If you're cutting 2 3-foot material, whatever, on what I call the outer saw, but we'll be cutting the inner diameter of the insulation. Release this knob here, raise, lower. This guide post to set the position of this guide. The guide for the inner saw, which is cutting the outer diameter of the insulation. This is a little more primitive. Basically, you have to unbolt this, move it up to the height you want it, rebolt it. Vacuum. So you can use vacuum on this machine for 2 purposes. First off, you can use it for dust collection. The inner and outer saw heads both have dust nozzles where you can connect up a dust collection system here and here underneath the work table. You can also use a vacuum system to hold the workpiece. I mentioned that the vacuum mandrels have a series of holes here. There's a cavity or a channel through here, so you can connect a vacuum system to a nozzle right under here. That'll pull vacuum in all these little holes. So you can put a workpiece up here with the vacuum running and it'll stay. I've got other videos demonstrating that, but this vacuum mandrel just allows you to plop a workpiece up there and it'll stay while you make the cut. Let's see if I'm missing any of the details on setup. I think that gets it for setting up as a pipe covering saw. If you have any questions, obviously there's a manual for the machine. If you really get stuck, you can call us here at Forest Manufacturing, or if you have questions about this machine, please feel free to call or email us. Thank you for watching.